In January of 2010, when the earthquake hit Haiti, I felt absolutely compelled that I just needed to go and help. I felt God was calling me, even though I had never done anything like that before. I so badly wanted to use my nursing skills in any way that I could help, but I had no idea. How am I gonna go? Who am I gonna go with? What am I gonna do? And my pastor suggested I call Samaritan's Purse. So I actually got on their website, and sure enough, they were looking for medical volunteers. So I applied, and a few months later, I head right off to Haiti to help on my first trip. About 3 weeks in, we were having devotions in the morning. We were doing by now mobile medical clinics. So the initial earthquake response was over for the most part for that, but now we were doing mobile medical to help all the displaced people from the earthquake. So we were having devotions in the morning, and suddenly we got a call from the road, and they said, "We need the 5 medical team to come quick, there's been an accident." So we raced down there expecting to see just a normal car accident, and what we saw just shocked my system. 2 large transport vehicles carrying over 70 people hit head-on around a curve. And we got there, and there were bodies everywhere. The 2 drivers died instantly. We had to stabilize the passenger. His leg was nearly amputated. We had to cut him out with a chainsaw. We had to climb into the back of the trucks and check pulses on all the people to see who was alive and who was dead. I found a 3-year-old girl who had been thrown from her mom's lap from the top of the truck into the weeds. She was really critically injured. I came home from that trip, just my soul was crushed. I mean, as medical people, yes, we see suffering, we see death all the time, but just it was so large scale, and the suffering was horrible. That little girl died, and her mom died, and 28 people died that day. I came home, and I told my husband, I'm never doing that again. I'm just gonna stay here in the States, and I'm gonna work in a hospital here, which is great. I was done. Well, a month later, cholera broke out, right in Haiti. And God was working on my heart and telling me, you need to go. And I was like, God, I'm scared, I can't do it. He said, I'm gonna be right with you. And I thought, well, how am I gonna go? And Samaritan's Purse called and said, hey, cholera broke out. Will you go back and work in a cholera hospital? I was torn, I didn't know what to do. And I just felt God calling me, you can do it, I'm gonna be right with you. So I went back again. But this time, I felt different. I felt God right there with me. Not that he wasn't with me the first time, but I felt him giving me the skills that I needed, giving me the coping, even though we saw a lot of death, a lot of suffering. God was with me, and right then, my passion for this work began. So 7 years later, many trips later, I want to tell you all the reasons that I keep going back, because I get asked a lot. That's probably the most asked question I get is, why do you keep going back? Why do you keep going to disaster situations after earthquakes and typhoons and hurricanes, to cholera, to Ebola, where I went twice, to Iraq? So there's 100 different reasons of why I keep going back and why you should go. But tonight I'll just share 3 reasons of why I keep going back. The first reason is the power of teamwork. I love the teamwork on a disaster response. But before I even get there, the teamwork begins right in my own home with my husband and my 2 kids. It takes a lot to get me out the door. I usually leave pretty quickly. So it takes our whole family to rally and get me out the door and get me packed, and I'm usually gone for a month. So my family pulls together and takes care of things at home. The next is the power of teamwork within the DART team. The teamwork is amazing. You're not alone. You're with a team who's there for one cause, the cause of Christ. And you're there with them together. I can tell you there was amazing teamwork. Just this past April in Ecuador, the earthquake hit, and we sent our DART team to go. We came in from all over the world. We got bused down to the area where we were gonna put up our field hospital. We got in very late at night, and our supplies hadn't arrived yet, so we spent the night out in the field under the stars. And the next morning, all of our supplies arrived, and we spent 11 hours in 116-degree weather putting up the field hospital. All as a team working together. We could have never done that individually, but as a team, you can accomplish so much. Amazing teamwork. Then we began the hard work of seeing patients right after that. I can tell you there's amazing teamwork going on right now in Iraq, on the outskirts of Mosul, where there's a field hospital. They're caring for trauma patients. As a team, they're coping and doing it together. The third part of teamwork is the teamwork with God. It's the best part. My relationship with Christ has never been stronger because I feel his presence so much every day, whether I'm at home or on the field. But God is always with us. I started in Haiti with my little tradition. Before I leave on a dart, I'll take a Sharpie marker and I write Philippians 4:13 on my shoe in a Sharpie marker. Because about week 2 or 3, you're exhausted. You've been working really long hours in really hard situations. You've seen a lot. And I'll look down and I'll see Philippians 4:13 on my shoe. And I remember I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. God is with us on our deployments. So the next reason I keep going back is the power of fulfilling medicine. That's why we're all here, right? We love medicine. We're passionate about it. And match that with your passion for Christ. And those two blend perfectly on the mission field. The power of fulfilling medicine is amazing. The things that we saw in Ecuador, the things that we're seeing in Iraq, I'm heading back there on Tuesday, and it's the power of fulfilling medicine that sends me back. Being able to heal people and fix them and bring Christ to them. It's such a great opportunity. So the next and last reason I'll share with you tonight, and this one's almost my favorite one, and it's the power of compassion. No one has taught me more about compassion than Serena. I met Serena in the Ebola unit in Liberia. I was there working in the chapel while it was converted into an Ebola unit. And Serena came into us. She had taken care of her sister who had Ebola, and her sister died. And now Serena had Ebola, and her mom had Ebola, and her mom was in the bed right across from her. And Serena was about in her late 20s, and she had 2 small children. And she came in very flat and very withdrawn and very depressed, understandably so. She would never make eye contact with us. She would never really engage with us. But we would go in our full uniform, taking care of her and all the other patients day after day after day. Singing to her, we would sing hymns over her as we took care of her, sharing Christ with her, praying for her. She never really engaged with us, and that was okay. By about day 10, Serena got really, really sick. If you even make it to day 10, it's surprising. But by then, you're really sick. She was so weak, she couldn't even lift her head off of the pillow. She had bloody red eyes. She was bleeding out of her nose. She was bleeding into her urine. She was bleeding everywhere. She was losing stool and vomiting as fast as we could squeeze bags into her. And I went in to take care of her, and at that moment I saw her laying in her bed, laying in filth, and I was just mad at that moment at Ebola, mad for the dignity that it stole from people, mad at the suffering and the death. And I thought, just for a minute, I'm going to restore her dignity, even if it's just for 1 minute. So I asked for a bowl of soapy water, even though we were supposed to only be in our PPE for 45 minutes. That's really the safest amount of time. But often in those beginning days, or those beginning months, we were in those suits for up to 3 hours because we had so much work to do. So I didn't care. I thought, I need to restore her dignity. So I asked for a bowl of soapy water. We shredded a pillowcase to make some washcloths. And as gently as I could, because when you have Ebola, you hurt from your head to your toes, and everything hurts you. But as gently as I could, I just cleaned her. And I would share Christ with her. And I would tell her about her kids and tell her about Christ and tell her that Christ loved her. And when I was finished, I told her, Serena, I have to go now, but you know I'll be right outside. You won't be alone. And I was getting ready to walk out, and she grabbed my hand. And I could see she was moving her lips, and she was so weak. She was trying to tell me something. And I had my whole suit on. I was a sweaty mess. So I leaned down, and she said, thank you for taking care of me. And then she said, thank you for being my friend. And then she looked me in the eye for the first time in over 10 days. And we made eye contact, and she said, I love you. And Serena died that night. But she knew Christ. And she knew compassion. She had dignity for a minute. And it's the power of compassion. And that's why I keep going back. Thank you.